Peace and greetings to everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. The channel is titled Classes in Session, and my name is Walt. I am a former public school teacher in the Los Angeles area of California, specifically the Watts area. I taught history there, and I have a bachelor's in history and a master's degree in modern history. And so a little bit about this channel. This channel will be combining social science, specifically social science theories, with ancient wisdom to better understand societal control systems and how to free the self from these constraints, so that you can begin to make your way back to the original story that is being told on this planet. Now, this channel is specifically for so-called Black Americans or Black people worldwide, so-called Black people worldwide. As the channel progresses, we will get into greater detail about why I say things like so-called Blacks, because that's really not a name. It's a category. But we'll get into that. Each ethnic group around this globe has an actual name, and this is important in how you interface with the physical reality here. It's important to note that this channel is not a debate space. This is a space for education, and I am the expert or adept here. As I stated, I have a master's degree in modern history. I also have completed, or I did a sociology of education master's degree recently, and I submitted it, and I defended my research, and I'm just currently waiting on the final edits to that thesis to be approved by the master's program that I was in. And so yeah, I will have 2 master's degrees soon. My master's degree in modern history dealt with educational policy, and this degree, this master's degree, the sociology of education master's degree, deals with curriculum. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's presentation. Today's presentation will be about how Black leadership is doing a disservice to the Black masses, and this is specifically in America here that we're talking about. Black leadership is doing a disservice to the Black masses by the knowledge that they are conveying to the people. So let's dig deep into this and see what this is about here. Okay, now, before you listen to and internalize anyone's message that claims to be speaking for Black people, make sure you understand whether that individual's message is one that will lead you back to your binary prison or your control system, which is society, or one that will lead you towards the liberation of your soul, or oneness, or the divine, or what we know of as God. So we are born in the mind of God. This is where our origins lie. And you are, I wouldn't say kicked out of the mind of God, but you are given a mind to go out into reality and have an experience. And you are thrust into a binary world. And once you are thrust into that binary world, it is your job to come to terms with the fact that it is binary and that you must reject the idea of binary, a binary existence, a binary world, so that you can then be accepted back into the mind of God or the mind of the divine, which is your origin. So we'll dig deep into this concept. This is not a novel concept. I'm not the originator of this by any means, and you will see as we go along in this presentation. All right, so the symbols that the ancients left behind had a considerable level of knowledge embedded in them, and these symbols are a representation of certain principles that are timeless, that you need to know and understand in order to navigate your way down here on this physical plane. So the first symbol that we're going to get into is the symbol of Ouroboros. The symbol of Ouroboros is the symbol that you see here on your screen, and it's just the snake eating its tail, which there are other depictions of Ouroboros. Sometimes you'll see a dragon. It's also symbolic, a symbolic representation of the circle, which represents infinity. So Ouroboros here reflects the divine principle of oneness. It symbolizes the interconnectedness of all things, and the self-generating nature of the divine and the unity of opposites. It serves as a reminder that everything is part of a greater whole and that there's an underlying unity in all aspects of existence. Most importantly, for the purpose of this lesson, the serpent's dual nature of devouring and being devoured signifies the interplay between creation and destruction, birth and death, light and darkness, polarities, or binary forces. There's that term binary again. It signifies the harmonious integration of these opposing forces, which and highlighting the underlying unity and balance within the divine mind. All right. Now, here's another symbolic representation of oneness. It's the Ankh. The Ankh is the Hermetic symbol of the unity of all things. It represents eternal life and the cycles of life and death. It also symbolizes the unity of the man and the woman who come together to create life. So it's a life-based symbol. Now, the upper symbol of the Ankh symbolizes the womb or the divine feminine energies of nature, which is the origin of all life. And the lower section of the Ankh signifies the sacred masculine energy of nature, or his male reproductive organ, where life continues to proliferate. It's a symbolic representation of the unity of men and women. So here, this symbol deals with life and how life is continuous, but it's continuous based upon a harmonious relationship between two polarities, the two polarities of men or male and female, masculine and feminine. And here's the final symbolic representation of oneness that we'll go over today. And this is the infinity symbol, which represents endlessness, eternity, and the cycle of life and death. The infinity symbol also symbolizes the divine or oneness, and it represents concepts like boundlessness, eternity, and the incomprehensible, which are all attributes commonly associated with the supreme divine being. Infinity transcends finite human understanding. All right? So, now that we've explained the concept of oneness and the divine mind, so what is binary, and what is binary in a societal context? So in a societal context, binary refers to a way of thinking or categorizing things in terms of two opposing or mutually exclusive options. This can manifest in various forms, such as the gender binary, male, female, the race binary, black and white, binary thinking, seeing issues solely as right or wrong, or binary opposition, opposing pairs like good versus evil. Critics argue that binary thinking can limit understanding and perpetuate stereotypes and discrimination. Now, Western governments, they maintain a conscious effort to keep societies divided. Now, how do they do this? All right, well, first, let's see. On most government applications, you must declare your gender, race, and your income. And interestingly enough, there's a gender war, a race war, and a class war going on. And this has been going on for, in the American context, since its inception. And this is just how Western society exists. So government uses its institutions like the education system and the media to keep these categories divided, so that there can never be any unity against whatever government is doing. The masses will never be unified to combat whatever government is doing, because the institutions that exist in the society put forth rhetoric to keep people divided and at each other's throats. This prevents a French Revolution type phenomenon from ever happening in the contemporary world. Entrenched power will always maintain control over a society and its resources, the people included, the human resources, as long as the populace is divided. Now, before this modern era, societal elites were often murdered. So this book here by Samuel Kahn Jr. is called Lust for Liberty, and it's a book that details a lot of the social revolts that took place in medieval Europe around the year 1200 to the year 1425. Now, the book covers a broad geographic range, including revolts in Italy, France, Germany, Flanders, and England. And it highlights how these uprisings were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger pattern of social unrest. The causes of these revolts, Kahn explores the economic, social, and political factors that fueled these revolts, such as oppressive taxation, feudal exploitation, and a desire for greater social and economic freedoms. The book details the organization, tactics, and leadership of the revolts, demonstrating that these were often well-organized and strategically planned events rather than spontaneous or chaotic uprisings. It emphasizes the role of diversity in these movements, which included peasants, urban workers, and even some members of the lower nobility, challenging the notion that revolts were solely peasant movements. The book assesses the immediate and long-term impacts of these revolts, noting both their successes in achieving certain reforms and their failures, which often led to brutal reprisals. Now, what are the themes of Lust for Liberty? There was a quest for justice and equity. Oppressed groups sought to challenge the inequities of the feudal system and demand fair treatment. Political agency. The book highlights the political agency of common people, illustrating how they were active participants in shaping their societies and not merely passive victims of oppression. Resistance and repression. Another key theme is the dynamic between resistance and repression, examining how authorities responded to revolts with both concessions and brutal crackdowns. Solidarity and division. The book explores the solidarity among different social groups in their common cause against oppression, as well as the internal divisions and conflicts that sometimes undermine their efforts. And lastly, we have continuity and change. Khan also discusses the continuity and change in social and political structures, showing how these revolts influenced subsequent developments in European political thought and social organization. The most important thing that I need you to take from this book, though, is that the peasantry and just the overall heterogeneous groups that were behind these revolts would often go and pull the elites out of their homes and murder them. They would often pull them out of their homes, murder them and their families. And then they would bring forth new leadership. But the idea is to understand that this was a common occurrence during this era. So the people had agency. The people knew their power to change the society. And this is how change is pushed. This is how things get better, as opposed to a populace that really doesn't do anything of substance to change their circumstances. Now, I want to talk about an idea. And the idea that I want to talk about is that people have allowed this concept to hover around society, this understanding of, or this idea of boogeyman. You know, we have good and evil here. That's the binary we're talking about. So instead of focusing on the behavior and how to eradicate the behavior of these bad guys, this evil, we focus on a bad guy, and we make that the object of our ire. And in movies and whatnot, and in societies, they want to punish the quote unquote bad guys, but the education system is not used to actually eradicate the behavior in the society or in the people. Okay? So let's take a look at some familiar bad guys in our pop culture. So we have Commodus and Gladiator. So what are some of his character traits here? We have greed and lust for power. He's driven by an insatiable desire for power. So much so that he murders his father and takes the throne because he covets the authority and influence of being the emperor. Other character traits include jealousy and insecurity. He's deeply insecure, particularly in comparison to Maximus, whom his father favors. This insecurity fuels his jealousy and resentment, leading to his antagonistic actions. Other characteristics include cruelty and sadism. Commodus is often cruel and enjoys exerting his power over others. His sadistic tendencies are evident in the way he treats his subjects and gladiators. And then lastly, we have narcissism. Commodus has a grandiose sense of self-importance and craves admiration and adulation from the populace, and his narcissism blinds him to his flaws and the consequences of his actions. Next, we have Lex Luthor in Superman comics. And these are just guys I pulled that we can all, they're archetypes that we can all recognize through pop culture. I'm a big pop culture guy. Maybe not necessarily contemporary popular culture, 21st century popular culture, but 20th century pop culture, yeah. That's my domain. And I do like a little early 21st century, but a lot of the music and movies and whatnot that come out today they're just not as high quality as what we had come to know in the 20th century. But anyway, I digress. So Lex Luthor in Superman comics, here are some of his character traits. He has an obsessive hatred for Superman, which stems from a mix of jealousy, fear of being overshadowed, and a belief that Superman is a threat to humanity's progress. Luthor is highly manipulative, often using his wealth and influence to corrupt others, orchestrate plots, and turn public opinion against Superman. Luthor's ambition knows no bounds. He seeks power and control, both for personal gain and to position himself as a superior figure to Superman. And Luthor has a colossal ego, believing himself to be humanity's true savior, and his arrogance leads him to underestimate Superman and others who oppose him. The Joker in Batman comics. The Joker is notorious for his insanity and chaotic nature. His actions are unpredictable, making him a terrifying and formidable foe. He's sadistic and cruel. He enjoys inflicting pain and suffering, both physically and psychologically. His cruelty is a key aspect of his character. And he has a deep and complex relationship with Batman, often viewing their conflict as a game or a dance. This obsession drives many of his actions. And this character is one of the most compelling characters in pop culture. This performance, Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this particular movie here is one of epic proportions, and it symbolized, in my estimation, what is taking place in society today. Is that the society is basically driving everyone insane. Now, why must this oppressor binary dynamic, why must it be eradicated? Well, the only difference truly between oppressors and the oppressed is power. Their energies are mirror images of one another. The oppressed have the same exploitive actions towards other oppressed individuals as the oppressor has towards the oppressed. The same poor treatment, poor attitudes, intolerance, and the same disdain, dislike, hatred of themselves that was taught to them by oppressors. The oppressed are upset about the oppressor's use of dogma as a tool of oppression, yet the oppressed use dogmatic language and dogmatic behaviors when engaging other members of the oppressed group all the time, and lack the self-awareness to see the obvious. Now, how does this all tie into Black leadership? Well, any leader coaching you to remain in a binary state of mind is not someone you should be following anywhere. They're either purposely or unwittingly leading you away from the divine mind or God. Binary thinking in societal contexts, particularly the binary of oppressed versus oppressor, which is often used in discussions of race, keeps the mind situated in the current paradigm. Maintaining such binaries inherently perpetuates the concepts they define, as each term's meaning relies on its opposite. By teaching the oppressed versus oppressor binary, Black American academics and leaders might be unintentionally reinforcing the very structure that they aim to dismantle. Focusing on these binaries keeps both concepts alive, as each is defined by its relationship to the other. This means that continuously framing societal issues within this binary does not allow for a deconstruction of the binary paradigm, which facilitates a return to oneness or the divine mind. It keeps the godless realm alive. Now remember, I call it godless because God is oneness. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, he discusses this concept of oneness and this concept of conflict. And so it's your job as an individual to reject because con means two. Binary means two. If you don't reject this concept, then the divine mind or oneness will never recognize you, because as Dr. Wayne Dyer said, if it recognizes you in your state of binary or your state of conflict, then it will cease to be oneness, and it will never cease to be oneness. So it is your job to dismantle this binary mind that you have on your own. This is your job. Now, simply killing the bad guy or putting him in jail does not eradicate their attributes. These attributes can and do live on in others. My idea emphasizes that focusing solely on the physical embodiment of evil, an individual or a group, overlooks the deeper, more pervasive issues, the thoughts, behaviors, and mindsets that give rise to oppression and tyranny. The attributes that we talked about, the character traits in the bad guys, they will live on if this is the way that we deal with them, if we only deal with the living embodiment of it, as opposed to eradicating the thoughts, behaviors, and mindsets. So Commodus and Gladiator embodies greed, lust for power, insecurity, cruelty, and narcissism. While Commodus himself is killed, these attributes do not die with him. They persist in the Roman Empire's political culture and among those who crave power and control. Lex Luthor from Superman Comics represents intelligence used for manipulation, obsessive hatred, ambition, and ego. Defeating Luthor in a physical sense doesn't eradicate the societal and psychological conditions that breed similar figures. The Joker in Batman Comics epitomizes chaos, unpredictability, and sadism. Even if the Joker is captured or killed, the chaos he represents can inspire others to similar anarchistic philosophies and destructive behaviors. I should take anarchistic philosophy out of there, because I'm actually an anarchist. So, and I'll make a video later on explaining that and delving deeper into that concept. But let's get back to this. Now, we have to put this in proper context. There's a fallacy of focusing on outward appearance. The oppressed often focus on the immediate threat, the individual oppressor, without addressing the underlying attributes that fuel oppression. In Lust for Liberty, medieval revolts targeted oppressive lords and officials, but the feudal system's inherent inequities and the social attitudes underpinning them remained intact, allowing new oppressors to arise. So, you must kill these attributes in you in order to begin to make your way back to oneness. And how do we do that? Well, let's talk about the 7 Hermetic principles. All right. The 7 Hermetic principles. Let's dig deep into that. So initially, we have the Hermetic principle of polarity. This is what we're discussing here. According to the Hermetic principle of polarity, the oppressor and the oppressed are 2 sides of the same coin, reflecting each other. Demonizing a specific race or group simplifies the problem and ignores the fact that anyone given the right or wrong circumstances can exhibit oppressive behaviors. Commodus, Lex Luthor, and the Joker all reflect aspects of society that can manifest in various forms and people. So, stop focusing on white boogeymen. Again, you're simply mirroring the behavior of those focusing on black boogeymen. Begin developing the spiritual aspects of your being. As of right now, the people are focused far too much on the material aspects of their being. Focus on yourself and developing your spiritual side. Develop your spiritual nature. Killing those negative traits in yourself makes you impervious to oppression. There's a part of you that exists beyond language, beyond religion, and beyond time. He who neglects that part of himself will always have an oppressive power sitting right outside his door, waiting to ride his back like a horse. This is truth. This is the reality. This is a reality in this universe. So, what exactly are the 7 Hermetic principles? The 7 Hermetic principles come from the philosophy of Hermeticism. It's a philosophical and religious tradition based on the writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, or Jehuti, or Tahuti. And these teachings provide a framework for understanding the universe and how you're supposed to be here. There's already a template here for you to adopt that will allow you to be here and live down here in a state of peace and prosperity. All right. So, well, what are these 7 principles? We have the principle of mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is mental. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as below, so above. The principle of vibration, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The principle of polarity, we covered that. Everything is dual, everything has a polarity, everything has its pair of opposites. Also, the principle of rhythm, everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. Basically, every civilization will rise and fall. So there's no need to get caught up in the rise and fall of any civilization. It's meant to happen. It's the nature of this place. All right, so next we have the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. And lastly, we have the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Everything. So that's how you see how in today's society, you can see how some males may have higher, their feminine energy may be a little high, or in women, their masculine energy may be too high. You know, you're supposed to, you can balance that. You're actually supposed to balance that. So moving on. So how do we transcend the binary reality, or this duality or godless realm. If the oppressed and the oppressor are mirror reflections of one another, which suggests that they're polarities, and the ancient texts and scriptures say that the oppressed time is up, then how is it that the oppressed time isn't up as well? If one song is terminated, then how can the other song continue? They both need one another to exist. My interpretation is that the individual needs to achieve some sort of balance between the two polarities. And this isn't really my interpretation. This is what all the ancient wisdom and ancient scriptures teach. This is what Masonry teaches. This is what all the spiritual traditions teach. Now, the idea of transcending duality is Hermetic in nature and aligns with several principles of Hermetic philosophy. Hermeticism, as I said, it's rooted in the writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, Tahuti, Thoth. These writings emphasize the unity and interconnectedness of all things and the importance of transcending duality to achieve higher understanding and enlightenment. We are here to become enlightened, but we all are at different stages of that path. That's the important thing to know. So, let's dig deeper into the 7 Hermetic principles. The first we're going to deal with is the all is mind, the universe is mental. This principle implies that reality is shaped by consciousness and that the mental realm precedes and governs the material realm. Transcending duality requires a shift in consciousness, recognizing that the separation between the oppressed and the oppressor exists primarily in the mind. In this context, achieving balance and transcending duality involves changing one's mental framework. By dismantling the mental structures that perpetuate the duality of oppressed and oppressor, individuals and societies can create new paradigms rooted in unity and holistic understanding. The next principle is the principle of correspondence, which is often summarized as above, so below, as below, so above, or as within, so without. This principle suggests that there's a correspondence between different planes of existence, the macrocosm and the microcosm. This principle implies that changes in the mental and spiritual realms reflect in the physical realm. So if you want to make changes in the physical realm, you have to change your mind first. You have to implement these changes that you want to see in the physical world in the mind first. Now, achieving balance between the oppressed and the oppressor on a personal or psychological level, the microcosm, can lead to broader societal changes. This alignment can help bring about the end of the current paradigm and the emergence of a new one. Now we have the principle of vibration next. The principle of vibration states that everything is in constant motion and vibration. Nothing rests and everything is in a state of continuous change. Life is a series of paradigms, each rising and falling in a cyclical manner. Transcending duality involves attuning oneself to the higher vibrations of unity and harmony, rather than being caught in the lower vibrations of conflict and separation. Next, we have the Hermetic principle of polarity. I think I've discussed this enough to the point where I don't think I need to reiterate any of this here. So I'm just going to skip polarity, but just understand that the gender war, the race war, and the class war is a result of this principle of polarity. The principle of rhythm. This principle asserts that everything flows in and out, rises and falls, and that there is a rhythm to all things. The principle suggests that the cycle of oppression and liberation is part of a larger cosmic rhythm. Understanding this can help one see that periods of oppression and liberation are not permanent. but part of a larger pattern that you must transcend and rise above. To transcend the duality of oppressed and oppressor, one must learn to ride these rhythms without being overtaken by them. This involves cultivating a sense of inner balance and resilience that allows one to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. Excuse me. Those who can align with the natural rhythms of the universe can move beyond the dualistic cycles of history, achieving a state of enduring equilibrium. Next, we have the principle of cause and effect. This principle asserts that nothing happens by chance and that every action has a corresponding reaction. This principle underlines the interconnectedness of events and actions, suggesting that the relationship between the oppressed and the oppressor is governed by this dynamic. Recognizing this interplay can help in understanding how historical and current actions have led to the present state of affairs. Transcending this dynamic involves becoming aware of the causes behind oppression and oppression, consciously creating effects that move towards unity and balance. By understanding and applying this principle, one can see that changing the mental and spiritual causes can lead to different physical effects, thus breaking the cycle of oppression. Those who manage to master this principle can create positive effects that transcend the traditional duality of oppressed and oppressor. Now, the principle of gender. This principle states that gender manifests in everything, not just in physical sex, but in all aspects of creation. It speaks to the idea of balance between masculine and feminine energies. This principle can be applied to the relationship between the oppressed and the oppressor by recognizing that both have inherent masculine and feminine qualities that need to be balanced. So the man needs to balance the masculine and feminine energies within himself, and the woman needs to do the same. If you notice, many people in society are just out of balance, which creates a society that's out of balance. So the individual must fix themselves if they want to fix society. You do not fix society by fixing society, if that makes sense. You have to fix yourself. And as we can see, the education system and the institutions in society, they're not concerned with fixing the individual. They're only concerned with remaining in power. This is the primary objective of a lot of my teachings, is to understand, is to convey this understanding that the current system and its progenitors, or its or those people who run it, they just want to remain in power. They don't really care about the people. All right? So transcending duality in this context, this principle, involves integrating these energies within oneself and within the family structure and societal structures, promoting harmony and understanding. By achieving this internal balance, individuals can contribute to dismantling external structures of oppression, moving towards a more equitable and unified existence within. Or we can just basically go and create something else. Leave the current paradigm and then go and create a paradigm where unity and equity are primary foundational structures. So, transcending duality begins with self-integration, recognizing and reconciling the oppressed and the oppressor within oneself. This involves acknowledging one's own shadows, biases, and internal conflicts, and striving for inner harmony. Carl Jung's psychology, which draws from Hermetic and alchemical traditions, emphasizes the importance of integrating the shadow self for personal growth and wholeness. Another way to transcend duality is by embracing unity and destroying judgment in the mind. On a societal level, transcending duality involves fostering empathy, understanding, and unity. It means creating systems that do not perpetuate cycles of oppression and division, but instead promote equity, justice, and collective well-being. This shift requires a conscious effort to dismantle existing mental and cultural structures that uphold dualistic thinking. Judgment creates a hierarchy, or us versus them, which is binary. It's a separation. Now, cultivating higher consciousness. Practices such as meditation, mindfulness, and contemplation can help individuals attune to higher states of consciousness, where the unity of all things becomes more apparent. These practices can facilitate the mental and spiritual shifts necessary to transcend duality and contribute to the emergence of new paradigms. You can stay there and fight in that binary world and that in society all you want. But if you study the foundational social scientists and their theories, they will tell you that conflict and competition are inherent parts of society. And now I'm not saying that competition is bad, but competition is a conflict between two opposing teams or forces. So I don't really want to focus on the competition element of it. I don't, like I said, I just want to focus on the binary and conflict element of society and how we move away from the division that exists in societies. Now, what are some solutions? First, we must educate the youth about the binary battle that exists within them, which is Set and Heru. This is who you see here. Set is lower self and Heru is higher self. And so they need to understand that mastering the polarity within reduces binary conflict in the outer world. One must transmute the inner energy, the inner conflict. The inner transforms the outer. Teaching them about white boogeymen, fear, and worry about the system's power only perpetuates the very system Black leadership claims to despise or claims to want to get rid of. Your thoughts and attention are keeping it alive. Focus your gaze on you, your people, and how powerful you all are. Remember, the mind is all. The mind creates the reality. The reality doesn't create the mind. A high-level mind can shape reality, but it needs development. And that development doesn't exist in the public school system as it's constructed. Now, in conclusion, Black leadership and academics need to move beyond simplistic binary thinking and recognize the interconnectedness of all things and the need for unity through the teaching of spiritual systems like the 7 Hermetic principles. The so-called Black masses need to learn about these types of spiritual traditions, which will transform their state of consciousness and their state of being. By embracing Hermetic principles like mentalism, correspondence, and polarity, individuals can achieve a higher state of consciousness and break free from oppressive binaries. Youth education, educating the youth about their internal conflicts and promoting self-mastery can lead to a generation that transcends external binaries and fosters unity and understanding in the community. Now, true liberation from control systems is achieved by dismantling societal divisions and promoting holistic understanding. This new generation can lead the way towards true liberation and spiritual awakening for the Black community. Each individual would no longer require a leader and would be able to guide themselves towards their soul's objectives. they would transmute their energy from lower vibrations or lower self into higher self, which would then provide them with a reality where they exist above binary conflict. Now, that brings this presentation to a close, and I hope that this will provide you with some insight to assist you on your journey. And I will be back. I would say I'm going to be dropping videos every 2 to 3 days. I'm going to try to maybe minimize the time, lessen the time. I'm not exactly certain how long this one is. I know it's at least maybe an hour or so, but I kind of want these to be, these presentations to be about 30 minutes or so, no more than 45 minutes. So work with me, bear with me as I iron these things out. But you can expect these types of presentations that deal with social science theory, and how we can use the ancient wisdom and spiritual traditions like the 7 Hermetic principles, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, to actually exit that binary paradigm, because there's a lot of suffering that's going on in that binary paradigm. So, once again, that's it. I'm signing off. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will speak with you later.